This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, someone other than McCoy decides they don't like Spock, and this time Kirk actually speaks out against such bigotry.
Hello there, I am Gepwin. This is Watches of Tomorrow, and I am joined as always by my good friend Dr. Isix.
Hi.
This week we watched The Balance of Terror.
Does it involve a seesaw?
No, I've been sick, so if I sound more confused than usual, that's why. I've been sick all week from a cold, and I was going to set up a Tower of Terror joke, and then I forgot to do all my research. I was going to research the Tower of Terror and start talking about when it was made and when it stopped and things, and then I forgot to bring it all up until right now. It's oh, dang it.
Stretch, foiled again. Well, I never read the Tower of Terror. Is that still around?
I don't think so. It got replaced by some sort of Guardians of the Galaxy ride.
Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how they turned it into a ride, but it was only ever in Orlando, and I've only been to the California Disney. Ah, yes.
Anyway, so we got an episode here. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say that I think this might be my favorite so far.
I don't know. It's really tough for me to decide on this one. It's certainly a lot better than some of the ones we've gotten, but it has some problems that I really dislike about it.
Oh yeah, it's got issues, but
yeah, I mean, having issues, I guess it probably is one of the better episodes. But it's I don't know. It's been really hard for me to distinguish if I have a favorite so far because they all have such giant flaws that just leap out at me immediately.
It's well, this is hard to get past. Can I look around this now? It's just kind of there in the middle and blocking my entire view.
Yeah, it's which is your favorite McDonald's hamburger? They're all limp and tasteless, so I don't know.
The one with the least mold growing on it. There we go.
Alright, this episode has some fairly famous-ish guest stars in it. Nice. At least in the Trek sphere. We have Mark Leonard playing the commander of the opposing ship, who goes on to play Sarek, who is Spock's father.
And the original series and the animated series, Next Gen, several of the movies, and he's pretty much all around there and stuff.
Yeah, which I know they do this sometimes in Star Trek. You get an actor in a minor role and they come back for a major role later. But I don't think we've usually seen one that is such a similar character and that showed up so prominently in an episode. He's the lead kind of villain in this. I guess there was kind of Tom Paris in Voyager is the only other one I can think of where he showed up in Next Gen for one episode as a lead side character.
A lead side character who was a pilot who got in trouble and had to go to prison. And then Tom Paris shows up in Voyager as a character who was a pilot who had to go to prison.
Yeah, he has exactly the same backstory that just for some reason didn't want to use the same name.
I think there was something about the rights to the character were held by the author of that one episode, and they didn't want to have to pay them for it.
Oh, that kind of stinks. Oh well, well, we know it's the same guy. He just had a name change to
to avoid the lawyers. Yeah, Mark Leonard here, though, it's okay, you're a sort of stoic character with pointed ears, and you come back later as a different stoic character with pointed ears. You're just slightly different, I guess.
Yeah,
distant cousins, which I guess kind of makes sense here.
Yeah,
actually.
It does. I think. We also have Lawrence Montagne sounds a lot more like a last name. Come on, brain. He's playing a character called Decius, who isn't really named in the episode. He's just one of the people on the other ship.
He's like this guy.
Also on the other ship, we have John Warburn playing somebody called Centurion. Because you're getting a lot of Romany stuff happening here. Romanish, I should say, because Romani is an actual, like,
Yeah, it's a
people.
little different.
Yeah. Roman-like. And then finally we have Paul Comey playing Lieutenant Stiles, who was our resident Starfleet a-hole for the episode.
Yep. Always got to have at least one, because, in the future, humans are still jerks.
Yeah, they just have to bring in a new character, and they're not using them as this is the new guy we have to explain things to. They're using as this is the new guy that we get to hate.
Yep.
It's a weird dynamic.
We gotta make the rest of the crew look better in comparison somehow. So what are the themes for this week that we can sort of try to exploit to that? Well, he's got to be jerked about something. Well, we'll get into the episode there.
Yes. Well, I guess we may as well start, because there's really nothing else I can say about the plotting and planning of this episode that wouldn't be just spoilers. So we may as well just get into spoiling the whole thing.
Yeah.
It is wedding day on board the Enterprise, and Kirk is going to begin a ceremony, but before they all enter, there is some worrying news that Earth Outposts 3 and 4 have gone silent.
I think it's 2 and 3. 4 comes later.
Okay. Some number of outposts have gone silent.
Yes.
I kept messing these up in my notes, so the numbers will vary.
So a couple Earth outposts are out of commission or not communicating or have entered another dimension. We're not sure yet.
Yes.
They've gone to the Shadow Realm.
Kirk begins making a marriage speech for the two people we've never seen before who are getting married.
Wait. For a moment, I was hopeful that Kirk was finally marrying the love of his life, the ship itself. But no, it's actually just a couple people.
Well, Yeoman Rand is kind of in the background here. So I was kind of wondering if they were going to do something with that for a minute, but no. I was going to ask which of us should make the Princess Bride joke.
Mileage.
Before Kirk could get too far, Earth Outpost 4 reports that it is under attack in the general alert and everyone has to run off.
Oh, noes.
They're right, it was Outpost 4 later. Captain's log. The Enterprise is patrolling the neutral zone.
Hooray, we got a neutral zone.
Yeah, it's the first time we get a neutral zone. There's like 4 or 5 throughout these series, but, this is one. It is between the planets Romulus and Remus and the rest of the galaxy.
Oh, that seems very isolating.
And it was interesting. I hadn't really remembered this. So in Star Trek Nemesis, when they showed up with the planets Romulus and Remus, I was like, I know Romulus from Next Gen because it shows up a lot. Remus sounds like the stupidest sister planet imaginable. And I didn't know that it was originally in there. I thought they'd made it up for the movie because it just sounds that dumb.
Nope. It's been there for the very start. Of course, the names are allusions to Romulus and Remus of the Roman legend about the founding of Rome and all that fun stuff.
Yes, which explains why they're very Rome.
Yes, despite being aliens.
The Enterprise is now en route to Outpost 4 to figure out what's going on with this attack. On the bridge, Spock pulls up a map that shows the neutral zone with the Federation on one side and the Romulan Star Empire on the other.
And it's very 60s diagram map sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's so 60s.
I love it.
There's even just a little blinky light to show where the Enterprise is.
Since we are here.
He explains to the ship in general that along the neutral zone, there are several outposts that monitor the border, and that the neutral zone was established after a war between Earth and Romulans that was fought so long ago that ships were using primitive atomic weaponry and had no capacity for visual ship-to-ship communication. So no human has ever seen a Romulan and vice versa.
So a mystery species on the edge of our space here who may be hostile, but we just haven't really done anything with him for like a century. And that whole little conflict back there, well, it's all kind of set up and ended, sort of without, visual communications. It's all over radio.
Yeah, it's kind of like the opening to Battlestar Galactica. They might have taken it from this idea. I don't know. Either side entering the neutral zone is to be considered an act of war under this treaty.
So that seems pretty severe.
Yes, it's like ultimate punishment of warness.
Like, well, I guess everything we built together, even though it's not much, is just going to be thrown out if we just even accidentally violate this.
This, of course, is just, the episode going into the kind of Iron Curtain stuff. So the Iron Neutral Zone.
A neutral zone is descended across space.
Which they always show as a line. Like, I know we're using 2D maps for some stupid reason. Mm-hmm. But like, is it a ball? Is it just this blob? Like, what does this actually look like in 3 dimensions? Because space is not as flat as they keep telling us space is.
Yes. I always sort of, just sort of stretch it into the third dimension in my head when I look at maps from Star Trek. But then I keep running to maps that are so radically different. It's like, well, maybe that's at a different angle. Then I realize, it's nobody knows what the hell they're doing.
No, you can't map space like this. Like, what orientation are you actually using for this map?
Yes.
An overhead map of space makes no sense.
No, maybe if you're like looking at like the entire galaxy and every single empire is like 100% from one edge, the bottom to the top of the galaxy sort of situation. But as far as this sort of scale, not really.
Yeah, we're not playing Stellaris.
Yes.
Kirk tells the crew that he has orders to avoid a interspace war.
Cool term there.
The clunkiest. The enter refers to between. So saying interspace means you have 2 separate spaces that are attacking, which I suppose is any war. Like, you have your space and I have my space and we are at war.
So my space is now invading Facebook. Wait, never mind.
Spacebook.
Spacebook versus MySpace. Fight! We've solved the mystery. This is all done on social media, just dressed up like a science fiction TV show.
We are both way too loopy for this episode.
A little bit. Just kind of crazy, because this one's a pretty serious one overall. Anywho.
Kirk says that he is under orders that under no circumstances is the Enterprise to enter the neutral zone, even if it means the destruction of all of the Earth outposts and the ship.
Seems like you guys are not really good at the whole holding up the part of the deal where someone entering the neutral zone is basically declaring war.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, you can destroy us, and we're not going to do anything about it because we don't want to be destroyed or fight. What?
I mean, they have some stuff later that throws some weird doubt onto why they even have these outposts in the first place, but
yeah.
The new helmsman of the episode, because we have to have a new helmsman in every episode, apparently, Mr. Styles, says that they know an outpost has been attacked, so that they should try to intercept the Romulan ship, but Kirk doesn't think after all this time they'll even be able to tell what a Romulan ship looks like. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be the other ship.
Yep.
There's you, and there's going to be another ship.
So look for the other ship, and maybe you'll be able to spot which one's the Romulans.
And Styles says, we'll know what it is because they always paint a bird of prey on it.
A century ago, and maybe their culture's evolved since then.
Yeah, also, I love how apparently there's birds of prey on every planet.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of one of those evolutionary niches you could sort of kind of expect to exist on many a planet.
Assuming you have birds.
Assuming you have birds. If you have airborne life, then it kind of makes sense. But if you don't, well, then you're not going to have them at all.
Yeah. So Styles knows all of this about the Romulans because several of his ancestors fought and died in the original Romulan War.
So, like your great-granddad?
Yeah, yes. We don't really know how long ago this is, but it's enough that they consider the technology to be primitive.
Oh.
Spock reports that Earth Outposts 2 and 3 have been destroyed, and Kirk orders battle stations when we cut to phaser control and see this almost married couple that we saw a little bit flirting on the job.
So I guess close co-workers are allowed to date and get married on the ship.
Yeah, and direct subordinates.
Yes. so I guess there's sort of maybe not sexual harassment rules in the future.
Well, apparently the only person who's not allowed to date a subordinate is the captain.
So, Kirk, why did you take the promotion?
Also, we spend a lot of time with this couple that we've never seen before, and I'm definitely sure are going to make it out of this fine.
Oh, of course. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, why else would we see them at the beginning unless they're going to have a nice, happy marriage at the end?
Exactly.
The Enterprise is 5 minutes away from Outpost 4 when they can make contact with the outpost, which tells them that most of the other outposts have been destroyed by an unknown weapon, but that the ship keeps disappearing.
It's almost like it's a ghost, or has some sort of cloaking device, perhaps.
Space Ghost.
Yes. The ship is a ghost.
The commander of the outpost explains that the weapon they were attacked by is incredibly powerful when a ship suddenly appears and just destroys the outpost and then disappears again.
Guy on outpost. No.
So far, we've got like married couple and dude on outpost, and dude on outpost is toast.
Yeah, so obviously the married couple is going to be fine because the other guy died.
Well, we've also got Styles, so, maybe he's going to die.
No, not Styles.
Spock comments that the vessel became visible when it attacked, and maybe it's necessary for them to become visible when they fire their main weapon.
So we're establishing you can't fire when cloaked. Interesting.
Yes. Spock continues to speculate that the ship's ability to disappear could be a selective bending of light that is theoretically possible but has a massive power consumption.
Gotta process all the qubits and things like that to make sure you're projecting the light properly through your, or projecting or not projecting as need be through your vessel.
Yeah, so they haven't really established it yet. But warp drive bends space-time, and they have artificial gravity, which would involve bending space-time.
Yep.
So if you can bend space-time, you can make light go wherever you want.
Pretty much, yes. Just sort of a matter of degrees.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be pretty easy to do this.
But I will say, is the in the physics context, that it is easier to simulate artificial gravity if you have something, as far as power consumption goes, if you just have a device that, power equals some strength of gravity than it is to actually bend light. So having it actually take a great deal of power actually kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Good. We have physics.
Yes.
Accidentally.
Accidentally, we have physics in Star Trek. What?
Yeah, so from what I've read, every now and then they'll hit a physics question and randomly call some dude they know to ask a question, and sometimes they'll get an answer that makes sense.
Hooray!
So maybe this was one of those times.
Very cool. And it actually kind of, as far as the mechanic work, very much helps out the episode, I'd say.
The Enterprise begins following a blip that they're getting on their motion sensors that is going back toward the neutral zone. So apparently this thing blocks light, but not sensors.
Or at the very least, it's leaking something that they can pick up. So.
And the Enterprise is really, really dependent on direct visual, sight to sight for most of what it does.
Yeah. You can't see
which
it,
is just
very
right? Weird for a spaceship.
It's not like we have radar or something. I don't know.
Kirk orders that they match course and speed with the enemy ship, so that there will appear to be a sensor echo when they are following them.
Oh, clever.
But Styles is immediately upset that Kirk is not instigating a full attack, and for some reason he believes that there could be Romulan spies on board the ship.
For reasons.
Yeah, this is just out of nowhere. Just I'm suggesting we might have Romulan spies on board, and then Sulu goes, yeah, I agree.
Sulu? What? Come on, Sulu. You know better.
Yeah, these people we've never had any contact with, that we are monitoring to see if they ever leave their star system, could have infiltrated the Enterprise somehow.
Well, I suppose that if they do have this amazing new cloaking technology, they would be able to potentially sneak into Federation space offload onto a planet real quick and then sort of start a infiltration setup like that. But they have no reason to believe that's the case at all at this point.
Yeah, since they only just encountered this cloaking technology.
This seems like a newfangled device of some sort.
Yeah, it's just a weird jump, and so much of the conflict of the episode depends on this like belief of people that there are spies on board. It's really weird.
Some sort of forced paranoia, like some sort of, I don't know, scare. Maybe something reddish in color. I don't know.
Uhura picks up a encrypted communication, and this lets Spock somehow get a visual onto the Romulans' bridge.
You're following the feedback loop and the carrier and the inverse phase wave. Yeah.
Yeah, the tachyon substrate thingy-mabob.
Yeah.
Here we see people dressed in silver clothes and weird, like, gold helmets that look surprisingly like Vulcans.
Yes. In fact, they make sure to show off at least one of the guys that is not wearing a helmet so you can see the ears.
Yeah, and everyone is just really surprised by this because they spend a full 2 minutes of runtime staring at the view screen, saying nothing.
It's like, holy crap, guys. This is crazy. It's like a ship full of Vulcans. But these are supposed to be Romulans. Oh my god.
Yeah, they're just all so shocked. They just stare completely still and dumbfounded.
Eventually, Styles does eyeball Spock, but that's about it.
Yeah. After commercial, everyone is staring at Spock really awkwardly.
So, apparently Vulcans no longer exist. It's all been Romulans the whole time.
Yeah. O'Hara says that she's been working on decoding the Romulan communication, and Styles mutters that they should give it to Spock. Kirk asks him to repeat himself more clearly so the rest of the class can hear you. And he says that he assumes that Styles is complimenting Spock in his ability to decode. That Styles says, "I'm not sure," to which Kirk responds that he should leave his bigotry in his quarters.
Wait a moment. Holy crap, Kirk is actually, like, calling out some bad behavior.
That's the doctor's job, Styles. You stop it.
Oh, yeah.
You want someone to pick on Spock, you get McCoy up here.
McCoy's not here right now, so we have to play nice. Come on.
The bird of prey appears, and the Enterprise continues to follow them. On the Romulan ship, the commander orders that the cloak be brought back up because he believes they are being followed, even though his officer says that it's probably just a sensor echo.
Because apparently the Romulans also have to rely on visual confirmation to 100% be sure that there's something following them.
The Romulan commander comments that if he was in charge of the other ship, he would be following them and observing his enemy too. And he penalizes a crew member for sending an encoded message, which is what allowed the Enterprise to pick up and monitor them. But his friend and advisor comes up and advises him that the man he just penalized has friends in high places and it could be dangerous. And the commander just says, "Danger and I are old companions."
Yeah, Danger is my cousin. Yeah.
I'm going into a little more detail than I need to on the Romulans because the commander is actually just played really well.
Yeah.
And I want the show to be about him.
Yes. In fact, it's sort of about this point that he kind of becomes a main character of this episode, and he seems like basically the most interesting sort of quote villain we've run into so far.
Yeah, he's very complex and neat, and I don't know. I hate Kirk so much. This commander's way better.
The Romulan commander who's just murdered 3 outposts worth of people is a more upstanding person than Kirk. Uh-oh.
The commander is expressing his dismay that returning from this mission successfully will result in another war, but he is too, dedicated to his duties to not return successfully.
So we got sort of a bit of his character motivation. It's like, okay, I'm maybe not cool with the whole war thing, but I'm going to follow my orders because that's the kind of person I am. I'm over the top sort of duty sort of a thing going on.
Back on the Enterprise, Spock is demonstrating in a conference that the strongest substance that they have, this metal, has been rendered so weak by the Romulan weapons that he can crush it with one hand.
Well, that's pretty cool. But Spock, aren't you like super strong? Yeah, it's not strong.
Yeah.
That strong guy. Come on.
It'd be more impressive if they had one of the humans do it.
Yes. McCoy, you're weak. Crush this for me, says Spock.
They start discussing the Romulans' strengths and weaknesses when McCoy gets weird. It's like, we're talking about tactics when what this really means is the lives of millions of people are at risk. It's like, yes, that's why we're talking tactics.
Yes.
Figuring out how to get out of this.
If you're just worried about the long-term consequences and not thinking about how to avoid the bad ones, then you're kind of failing at your job, McCoy.
Styles, of course, is in favor of attacking and just randomly firing until they hit something.
So the blind fighting technique, got it.
Yeah, which people criticize, but then we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Spock agrees that they should attack because the Romulans look like they're related to Vulcans. And when his people were still savages and had, violent colonial streaks, they were pretty bad. So Spock thinks that if they show any weakness to the Romulans, that's going to be really horrible.
So, in other words, Spock is suggesting that they give them the Vulcan hello. Sorry, that's a Discovery joke.
Spock reports that the Romulans are about to pass through the tail of a comet, which will make the ship detectable.
Yeah, cool.
Kirk orders the Enterprise to, swing around and that they'll come at the Romulans as soon as they go through the comet tail and become visible.
So some sort of ambush sort of thing. Excellent. We'll have them right where we want them and be able to actually target them and take them out or disable them or destroy them or whatever we need to do. It could be easy.
The Romulan commander, however, is planning to use the comet trail to obscure the Enterprise's sensors so that they can then double back and attack them.
So we got the comet potentially helping them or hurting them, depending on exactly what the Enterprise is up to, what they're looking, and what sort of sensor suite they got going.
The Enterprise follows them into the comet, but when they come out the other side and don't see anything, Kirk thinks the Romulan has guessed his strategies and he just orders them to start firing randomly.
Yes. Sort of almost like a depth charge in a way.
This hits the Romulan ship, and some stuff is going to fall on the commander, but the Centurion, who was getting advice from earlier, pushes him out of the way and gets crushed.
Commander, no! Squash. Oh, thank you, Centurion. You are now the crushed.
The Enterprise's phasers break for no real reason, and then the Romulans take the opportunity to fire their weapon, which the Enterprise runs away from, and then the plasma ball disperses before it can hit them.
Well, I guess that's the benefit of having a warp drive. You can actually escape things like that.
Yeah, you can just get away. Though you don't see them running away from fire very often, which is interesting if they can just slam the warp drive into reverse really quick like that.
If something's coming at you at the speed of light, you're not going to have reaction time there. But if you actually see it coming from you, yeah, we can just sort of fire up the engines and back up.
As soon as the plasma ball thing disperses, Spock fixes the phasers, and Kirk orders them to follow the Romulans again, same as before.
Now, I will say this backing up scene, I do kind of have to, ask the questions. Okay, you're backing up, and you are not within immediately death range of it right away. So why don't you just move to the side and just kind of let it pass you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's motion seeking, maybe. I don't know.
It's it could have some tracking on it, but it's a big ball of plasma. That's just plasma. It's not like a device.
We'll talk about that in a second, because I think I know why they did this.
All right.
The neutral zone is now 1 minute away, and Kirk orders that they should overtake the Romulans before they cross into the zone, and they again begin to fire randomly. But they have not destroyed them, and Kirk decides to continue the chase into the neutral zone, still just randomly firing at where the enemy ship might sort of be.
So this is risky behavior, Kirk. Are you sure you want to start a war that they've already apparently kind of started?
Well, they have some weird stuff about, should we cross into the neutral zone? Because, they have already started a war by crossing into the neutral zone. But then McCoy's like, yeah, but once we're in the neutral zone, they can say we went in first, which is... Why did you have these outposts?
I don't know. So we could set up a plot and have questions. There we go.
They went into the neutral zone first after several of their outposts exploded for no reason.
Surely it's their fault.
The commander of the Romulan vessel orders that they load all of the debris and the dead body of his friend into the ejection ports and ship it into space.
Yeah, so because your ship is invisible, suddenly, the enemy would start seeing the debris and think you were destroyed. Very clever.
Spock reports debris, but not enough of it to be the Romulan ship.
Because
But
Spock is smart.
The Romulan ship is not moving anymore, so they've lost it.
Well, it could be, like, right next to that pile of debris over there,
Yeah, maybe it's like the last place you detected it.
And again, if they give one last burst of acceleration, they could be technically floating off wherever, but...
I guess, except that they keep calling these motion sensors. So
then that means the Romulans are motionless compared to the Enterprise.
Yeah, but maybe not to other things. Like, space is too weird for this. It's too weird. Captain's log. The Romulan ship is nearby, but with its engines shut off, and the Enterprise is also in silent running mode, which involves whispering for some reason.
That is very strange. But I guess the trope of, space has no air in it, so that means the sound travels faster, right? It's in full effect here.
I can think of ways that you should be able to, like if you were completely turned off the ship, you should be able to use like laser mics and similar things to like hear what's going on in the other ship.
Yeah.
But that would require you to know where the other ship is to begin with.
Yes, you'd have to effectively target it perfectly, and then if the ship you're trying to target has some means to sort of detect some sort of laser mic situation, then you're screwed. So it's sort of I'm hiding, but they're also hiding, and yeah. So we can't really risk this sort of technique to even sort of try to pick up the whispers on the other vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have been sitting around waiting for 10 hours at this point, apparently. Kirk complains to McCoy about the stress of command and that everyone needs him to be right all the time. And McCoy says some weird philosophical stuff about each person being unique in all the universe with like millions and billions of planets and galaxies and whatever. So don't go dying.
Yes. There is one Kirk, so don't destroy that one. Named Kirk. Yeah. Thank you, McCoy. That was very, very uplifting, I guess.
Yeah. Just remember, there's only one of you, so don't die.
Don't screw it up, Kirk.
Inspiring stuff. Spock accidentally pushes some buttons, which turns on a noise something or other, and alerts the Romulans to their position.
Oh no.
At least he turned on something, so like, yeah, maybe there's like energy or something instead of it being the noise, but it does make a lot of noise.
Yes, which I guess is at least kind of useful because it makes it obvious that there's something going on that shouldn't be.
It's better than than like the trope that they use in the submarines and things where somebody just drops a wrench.
Yes.
So. Kirk evades the Romulans by magically anticipating what they're going to do for no reason, and then fires randomly some more.
Well, I suppose Kirk probably has been thinking about the situation for a good number of hours, and it's like, well, what if suddenly we do make a blip? What then? What would they do? And he
unbeknownst to us.
Yes, and he just happened to guess the right answer.
The Romulan commander orders that they eject more debris, but anticipating that they're probably going to ignore it this time, he also wants them to load a nuclear warhead in with the debris field.
Oh, clever.
But the Enterprise detects the warhead and blows it up before it's too close to destroy the ship.
Take that, nuclear device.
The commander orders the Romulans to return home, but his crewmen are upset that he won't just go back and destroy the Enterprise. And the commander is then talked into attacking by his crew.
All right, Commander. I guess you're maybe kind of broken up because your friend's dead, but this is still a bad idea.
Styles, who is in the phaser room assisting in repairs and control, is an asshole to Spock.
Dang it, Styles.
He's like there helping out that soon-to-be married dude.
Well, I guess Styles is there to lay down his life for them and to make sure that they're okay. To have his redemption arc, right?
Yeah, this is exactly what's gonna happen. Just as Spock leaves, some weird smoke starts coming out of the wall.
Oh no, we're being attacked by gas.
Yeah, this is apparently bad.
Yes.
The Romulans appear, and Kirk orders them to fire phasers, but nothing happens, which leads Spock to realize that Styles must have been incapacitated, so he runs back to the phaser control and fires, destroying the Romulan ship. Well, disabling for now, because Kirk offers to help the Romulan commander, but the commander said that it is not his way, and does this whole, I regret we met like this, and in a different reality I could have called you friend, and then he explodes.
So wait a moment. What if there is two Kirks? Maybe they did meet another reality.
So far, we've seen at least two.
Yes.
In sickbay, Styles likes Spock now because he apparently dragged him to safety while leaving the soon-to-be married dude to die.
Spock, why'd you save the asshole? There was a nice couple in there, and you left one of them behind.
So Styles is saying, oh, he saved my life, and Spock says it was just logic because I needed to save a good trained helmsman.
And not the other guy.
I mean, I'll believe it, because, he saved the navigator, because, the navigator's hard to train.
Sure.
We can get any old dude to fire the phasers.
So I guess there is some logic there. Okay, Spock. This is a moment where your emotions would have, perhaps let this guy die, but you're like, well, I do need him, even though he's been kind of abrasive recently. And I can get over that.
Kirk goes to comfort the dead dude's fiancée, who, says it's okay because the dude died for something, I guess.
And died sitting at his console.
And that's all. They, she leaves and they, fade out on Kirk looking sad in the wedding room.
So, yeah. There's a lot going on in this one.
Yeah. Let's just start. The name itself, which lends to the entire episode, is a actual political term that was being used to describe the arms race between the U.S. and Russia during the Cold War.
We got an army. Well, we got an army too. Well, we got a fleet. We got a fleet too. We got airplanes. Well, we do this as well. How about this nuclear? Well, we're getting those too now. And okay, so we're gonna put them on missiles. Okay, we can do that too. Ho ho! And it just keeps building up, and things get more and more frightening. The weapons more and more deadly. So it's yeah, it's kind of terrifying over there, but it's balanced.
Yeah, it's the mutual assured destruction stuff that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Just great strategy. This episode in particular is based on and follows the plot of the 1957 movie The Enemy Below, which is about an American destroyer boat chasing a German U-boat submarine during World War II.
Yes, there's a reason I alluded to destroyers and depth charges earlier.
Yeah.
The Enterprise is clearly the destroyer, while the Romulan ship is the submarine because it can sort of vanish like a submarine under the water.
Yeah, the whole cloaking device thing just is just such an obvious kind of, yep, this is submarines in space.
Yep. So normally the trope is the space is like an ocean, so your spaceships are sort of acting like sea ships. Well, this is sort of taking it to the next level. We now got submarines.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because the submarine part of the Cold War is something that didn't really carry through as much.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody now in kind of our generation knows the Cold War things as the nuclear arms race and the space race.
Yeah.
But the submarines at the time were actually a massive deal and were frankly terrifying because if a war was going to start, the submarines were where it was coming from.
Yes, it's okay, so we need to be able to disable or take out the enemy's ability to project power. And, well, the U.S. and the Russians both have a number of ships. So how do you take out ships effectively? I know, submarines. And
Well, it's not even the ships. They started loading first strike nukes onto submarines.
yes, and then so and as I say, it's like, okay, we have a bunch of submarines, but what if we start putting missiles on them too? Then you could just have your submarines pop up right off to the coast of your enemy over there, and then fire the nukes off. And it's like, well, instead of having them, like say 10, 15 minutes before the ICBM comes in from the other side of the planet, it's coming in from right next door. It's like,
Yeah. Which just actually is the plot of Hunt for Red October, which happens to be one of my favorite movies.
Is that science fiction enough for us?
I mean, they come up with unrealistically advanced technology, so maybe.
We'll have to consider it.
So, I actually didn't realize, I always liked submarines, but I didn't really realize how important they were during this era. And the kind of submarine terror thing that they are doing is because during the Cold War, the Soviets had about 5 times as many subs as the US did.
Yes.
So it was like a oceanography arms race, because the Americans had better technology on the subs.
Mm-hmm.
But the Russians just had more submarines in the water, which is why in this one you have the submarine as the antagonizing force. Instead of it being like sub versus sub, it's Enterprise as the stand-in for the American vessel, and the Romulans have the submarine-ish vessel.
Say a difference in technique and tactics and vessel type. So I'd be, I guess, perhaps Rebus from sort of mentioning, if you wish to sort of understand a little bit more of like the potential tactics that could come in yourself in a very hands-on manner. There's a game called DEFCON out there that among these tools at play are submarines with short-range nukes on them. So if you want to sort of suss out a little bit for yourself, sort of some of the strategies involved here, and are feeling like I'm a video game type person, that's maybe one option. If you want to go reading, there's plenty of books out there that go into so much detail about all this stuff. It's kind of mind-boggling. So there is multiple ways to sort of learn about this sort of stuff that is out there. I highly encourage people to sort of take it in.
Yeah, I actually just doing my basic research. It's really easy to find out there. I found like 6 sources for this thing. There's a Nova documentary series they did on Soviet-era submarines.
Oh yeah, I forgot to even look up TV stuff.
Really interesting. And it's one of the reasons I said that I was going to talk about the whole plasma ball thing. Because in the reference material, if you actually are reading the things about this episode, this thing is called a plasma torpedo.
Torpedo, yes. Interesting.
And that's the thing with them running away from it. It was kind of interesting how directly they're paralleling U-boat tactics in this, because they are using like German-style stuff in this, because it's referencing the movie where they were facing off against a German submarine.
Yes.
And torpedoes actually move slower than boats do.
It's sort of basically got a little explosive on a little engine there, and the boat's like, well, I could potentially, if I see this thing coming, turn around and try to escape, and I can just sort of outpace it because my engines are so much more powerful.
Yeah, so if you can tell that a torpedo is coming at you, you can run away, and this is what several American submarines even did during the time period, and you had a bunch of interesting things with that, and it's weird to me how directly they paralleled the things. They even kind of had the Romulans pulling Russian tactics with the when they go through the comet tail and double back on themselves to catch whoever's following them. That was something that they called a crazy Ivan. When a Russian sub-commander would suddenly just do a 180 and go turning in the opposite direction to see if he had an American submarine following in his propeller wake.
So I guess in this case it would be the crazy Romulan?
Yeah. We don't know what a common derisive Romulan name would be.
Well, there's Tomahawk in the future, but that doesn't quite roll off that's the tongue there. I'll
No.
have to think about that.
Now, the other big thing they were doing in this episode, we could probably just sit around and try to dig up everything we could on submarine war tactics if we wanted to. But they were also doing a big Red Scare thing with the spies.
Yes. There's a reason I mentioned that.
So Americans were using technological spying, mostly with the submarines. They were actually laying listening devices on Russian military communication cables off of the Russian coastline.
Yes.
But the Russians used very highly placed operatives in American government, which is why there was so much paranoia. It was a lot of paranoia. There was a lot of really crummy stuff going on at the time with like McCarthyism and things like that, of just any random person being accused of being a communist agent. But one of the reasons that was going on is because the Russians did have a very sophisticated spy network in the U.S. at the time.
There is actual agents, but you're effectively a political witch hunt is kind of like, well, here are the people I don't like, so I'm going to sort of point at them and claim they're the spies without any real proof.
Yeah, I mean, it arguably took away from any efforts that they had to find actual Russian agents.
Oh.
Because they were just politicizing this to the extent that the people just flat out knew they were lying about this and were wasting so much time and energy just getting rid of their political rivals.
And so you got the House Un-American Activities Committee, which technically still exists, it's just under a different name.
Yeah, and this thing was used to get rid of political adversaries. Even like Walt Disney used it to break up unionizing. It was just a massively horrifying political tool that was being used to get rid of kind of mostly workers' rights organizations and anyone with kind of more liberal leanings.
It's like, well, people standing up for themselves and demanding, fair wages and, safety in their work environment. They're obviously terrible people that want to endorse Stalin on every opportunity. So we gotta band together and go after them. And yeah.
Well, people not wanting to work themselves to death for pennies sounds a lot like communism to me.
So we have to stamp this out. Ah. Oh.
The direct racism that they had in this was kind of interesting because that's more of a callback to the World War II era paranoia.
Yes. Which is kind of one of the reasons I was like, Sulu, you should know better.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in that. I understand that George Takei, probably did not have much to do with the writing for the episode.
Sure.
So, his character would not have direct reactions. But he has been very vocal and outspoken about the Japanese internment camps that were operating in America during World War II because he was in one as a child.
Yes. For those unaware, during World War II, the U.S. basically just rounded up everyone of Japanese descent, especially on the West Coast, and moved them to big camps. Well, you didn't do anything illegal, but we're still going to lock you up.
Yeah, and some of the stuff people don't necessarily know with that is not only were they locked up, but their property was confiscated. Mm-hmm. This was not just like, oh, we're going to put you all over here and keep an eye on you, which in itself would have been horrifying. But they also just, they confiscated their property, their possessions, they took away their livelihoods. The people who came out of those camps went back to nothing.
Yes, so basically we're going to take everything you own and destroy your life, and then we're not going to help you get any of it back after.
Yeah, and eventually the American government did pay reparations to the people who were in these camps. So they tried to do something about it later, but it was still pretty horrific.
Yes. It's one of those big giant black marks in the U.S. history that hopefully we don't repeat. Oh.
Well, yeah, and it's just odd that one, you did only have one character kind of doing this. You had the Styles character who's just like, Spock looks like the people we're fighting, therefore he must be a spy. Mm-hmm. it's weird. He gets condemned for it a little bit, but they let it go on way too long.
Oh.
And then the way that they resolve it is Spock saved my life, therefore it's okay and I'm no longer racist towards him.
So I guess Styles, good on you on being a better person, but this seems unbelievable.
Well, it also puts the kind of burden of proof on the other party.
Yes. So
It's not like Styles realizes that it's ridiculous to assume Spock is a spy. The fact that Spock looks like a Romulan means that he now has to go through extra effort to prove his loyalty to the ship to a random subordinate.
Yes. So basically, Spock is his boss.
Yeah, Spock is the second in command on this ship. It doesn't come up very often, but Spock is technically the second officer.
So, that should be, I don't know, a position of power where he can basically kind of like, no, by making this accusation, crewman, you are being insubordinate, and now you have to be, put through the mechanisms we have for people who are insubordinate.
Yeah,
So.
and it's nice that the writers had Kirk call this out, but like Spock's agency in this has been completely neutered.
Yes.
He should have at any time been able to order this dude off the bridge.
So I don't want to do this, but I think in a different Star Trek series, Data would have.
Yeah, I mean Data does. Like Data had this directly. It's one of my favorites. I can't remember the name of the episode.
It's the one with Worf, right?
It's when the Romulans are invading the Klingons.
Oh yeah, the two-parter there.
Yeah, and I
big Civil
cannot
War.
remember the name now.
Yeah, neither
for
can
some
I right
reason.
now.
Darn. But yeah, Data is finally given command of his own ship, which is just amazing as a character thing. And his assigned first officer does not trust him and keeps contradicting his orders, and Data is not having it.
It's like, well, I've done this, then this, Captain. Yeah. And Data's like, you did not follow orders. You did not, inform me of this and, ask me to, if this is, something to do. And so he's like, okay, then I'm going to undo everything I just did. And then Data's like, good. Now do exactly what you just did. Then, when you broke the chain of command, because that's my orders now.
Yeah, Data, that's just done so much better. I don't know. Data is just the best character.
Kind of, yeah.
In all of Star Trek, he's always been my favorite.
Sort of a weird aside. I think there's a meme of argument sort of a thing going around. It's like, okay, if you take the main crew cast from all the Star Trek series and have a battle royale, who would be the eventual victor? And it usually came down to it would always end in Data versus Odo.
I mean, if they're just fighting, yeah, they are the two most powerful people.
Yeah.
So.
Anywho, back to the episode.
So yeah, the kind of paranoia stuff they have going, it's fine. I actually think it has a lot more to do with kind of modern stuff than what they were doing and what they were trying to say for the time period.
Ah.
Because the reason that's given for Styles knowing so much and disliking Romulans so much is that his ancestors kind of died fighting Romulans, which we don't know how long ago this was, so we don't know which ancestors or how long ago, but he's got kind of this family racism thing going.
Which is kind of disturbing in a way, but it kind of still happens, honestly.
It does. I was kind of reminded of the like Southern pride stuff we've been seeing a lot of recently.
Yeah,
the Confederate ancestry.
It's like, the North of the war of Northern aggression, man, and we're gonna get them back someday. And all that nonsense.
Yeah, but it was actually an odd one to be using for the Cold War stuff that they were calling out, because the Russians were our allies in World War II, so nobody's ancestors were killed by Russians.
Yeah.
Except for the Germans.
Yes. So I guess maybe, if we're doing this more in the World War II sort of thing, like, oh, my dad, it'd be sort of like, oh, my dad died in World War One, maybe sort of as a parallel, but it's not really ancestors then. It's more of just my dad, because that would make sense age-wise.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know how long ago this was again, but this kind of so the ancestral racism thing is pretty scary.
Yes.
Because psychologically it can be a lot worse. Someone who actually had a conflict with another person in these wars, they had to see them as like actual human beings. They were of course othered and dehumanized for the purposes of the war. So that's one of the places where it starts. But they still had to have, one, direct interaction with these people.
Yes.
And two, the kind of horrifying things that went along with fighting in a war. The descendants who pick that up have the intentional othering from these stories, but they don't have any of the additional context that would come with having actually been in the conflict.
So the interaction, with the enemy, even if it is sort of in a remote sort of sense, like it was the Romulan War here, yet still you have to sort of think, about the people on the other ships that are, maybe a few million miles away. You still have to sort of perceive them as people that are having plans. They are making decisions. They are more than just sort of the othering caricature of them. And, so you have to sort of bring them into an actual sort of sense of reality. So it's like, okay, this is not just a concept that I am sort of ingrained into not liking. This is actually someone who has agency of their own, that they're trying to attempt something. And that's what this whole fight, that's what, and so we're fighting this out presently. But when you don't got that sort of, immediacy, you sort of just only have the othering, as you said, and and it sort of gets all abstracted. And so you can sort of fill in whatever details you need in order to reinforce that hatred without having any sort of grounding back to reality.
Yeah, you can think of it a lot more in that context like a family dispute, like a feud in kind of the traditional sense. Rather than, I mean, it goes on top of institutionalized racism generally, but in the context of the individual, it is, my family on family principle and family honor has a conflict with these people.
Your McCoys and your Sylvesters, no, Hatfields.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much that kind of thing, but then, mixed into the generalized racism that exists. I think that all of the way that they interact on the ship around these things, it suggests this level of human-centered racism, this human-centered superiority in the way that the ship operates and the way the systems are set up and the way that the people talk about this. An individual racist does not appear unless the system to support that racism idea exists already.
Yes.
You don't just randomly have a person in an equal society who just decides I hate that group of people. It has to already be something that exists in the world.
Yes, it doesn't spawn spontaneously.
And the fact that he's so quick to turn on Spock.
Yeah.
I could kind of see it. I see what they're setting up. It's we've never seen these people before. Oh my god, they look just like this dude who's on the ship with me. But the fact that he's so quick to turn definitely suggests that his opinion of Vulcans is already lower than humans.
So basically, he's kind of like McCoy already, just less obvious about it until this moment.
Yeah.
So I now have an excuse not to like Vulcans, too. Hooray!
I don't know, clunky. I'd call this whole episode a little clunky. The themes they're trying to deal with are slightly better than some of the things we've had recently.
No.
At least.
Still, I'd still argue as far as what we've taken in so far, this is probably my favorite. Despite the clunkiness, at least has more, interesting stuff going on that even is kind of just explain how clunky in some bits. Some of it kind of still works. The whole space tactics stuff is just kind of fun, honestly, to me.
See, I think this is why I can't call this one of my favorite episodes. Because the space tactics stuff had so much potential, and they really didn't utilize it well. You get to see the space tactics. You get to see them do this stuff. But I keep referencing how Kirk just magically knows stuff.
Well, he does have the trope of the magical "I'm thinking what you're thinking," that I'm thinking sort of thing going on with the Romulan commander, which shows up in various media from time to time. It's not realistic at all. But
yeah, I mean, it's fine to do, but when you do it without having even said anything about it, it's just magic.
Yeah.
Like, you could have spent a while building this up. They had enough downtime in this episode. There's a lot of padding. There's a lot of, intense staring and musical stings and just, stuff that makes this episode really drag out.
Well, this is kind of stuff we've seen a lot in the series so far, where it's like, well, here is 3 minutes of them sort of leading to the side and, looking dramatic, and there's a noise in the background, and there's, are they going to die? We're going to find out in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and they could have used some of that time to just be like, well, we're following. If they realize this, they could, be doing this line of thinking, in which case I would respond this way. Mm-hmm. And then they either do that or they don't do that. And then you have to adjust your tactics on the fly or not. And that is how you do a tactics-driven plot line.
Yeah.
You have to explain the thinking so that we can follow it, instead of, our plan went awry and now I have magically fixed it.
Alternatively, it's like, okay, if you don't want to have a lot of that as sort of the bulk of the episode, you can still sort of make it clear that it's still going on. It's just not being shown very much. Have Kirk, when they're doing the silent running stuff, it's like, I've been going over the tactics from the previous war and trying to read up as much as I can these last few hours, and I think I have some ideas on what their next move is probably going to be. And so it's sort of like he knows what their tactics are likely to be at that point, and so you don't necessarily have to explain them all, but it's not just sort of like, well, I just suddenly know. So, yes.
Or you can at least do the Ocean's 11 style thing, where you don't see it before, but then after the thing happens, they're like, oh yeah, this is why we were ready for that.
Oh, that's actually kind of a brilliant idea, I don't think I've ever seen something exactly like that as far as, I guess, space battle goes.
Yeah, and I just think the whole thing, for me, kind of exemplifies itself in the frickin' comet sequence. Because they have this thing, like, the Romulan commander is going towards this comet tail, which will reveal their ship. And my immediate thought was, why is he doing that? That is really dumb. Like, you should not fly your invisible ship through a comet's trail that will reveal the location of your invisible ship.
Well, I did sort of have a thought on that would sort of explain the internal, thoughts there. So they've not had any contact with each other for, years and years and years. And their technology has obviously advanced excessively since, that earlier contact. So given that the Romulans have already determined a pretty good level of knowledge that they are being followed, and despite their cloak, the Enterprise is able to track them, they might not think that they are able to be spotted through visual sensors, but they are. It's like, obviously the enemy has this new sensor suite that is able to pick us up through our cloak, so we need to have something that disrupts that. But anything else, we're not really thinking about.
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing, that's what the commander of the Romulan ship basically says later.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That explains why the Romulans decided to go into the comet tail. What bothers me is, why is Kirk just expecting that the Romulan commander is doing something this stupid for no reason?
So, yeah.
And they don't explain it. And his plan goes wrong.
Yep.
Because he's planning to use this as an ambush site, and the Romulan commander had a reason for doing this thing, which should have been obvious that he has a reason to do this supposedly stupid thing. But then even the fact that the plan goes wrong does nothing, because Kirk just recovers immediately, and they're basically back where they started.
Yeah.
There's no negative consequence to Kirk making a mistake.
You're right there. I didn't quite realize that before.
So since there's no explanation of the foreplanning, there's no post-explanation of how the plans functioned, and there's no stakes to whether or not Kirk is making these plans work correctly. So, like, to me, the tactical stuff that they're trying to do in this episode, even though it has a huge amount of potential, is just handled so terribly that I could not enjoy it.
Maybe I'm thinking it's because looking at all these little, these issues, these flaws, these collections of issues. Maybe I more fell in love with the ambiance of it.
It could be, and I feel like I should point out again, even though it seems a little more like they had some actual agency in this episode, once again, the actions of the Enterprise really didn't have much to do with the outcome here.
Occasionally they got a lucky shot, but yeah.
Yeah, and then even having gotten the lucky shot, and at the end, they're in a position where the Enterprise is more or less disabled, the Romulan ship is more or less disabled, and the Romulan commander is like, I'm just going to limp home, and that will be our mission completed. We destroyed the outpost, we demonstrated that our new technology is effective against them, and we escaped their lead ship.
So that should be mission accomplished, right?
Yeah, and his crew convinces him to do this suicidal attack. It had nothing to do with the Enterprise or what Kirk was doing.
Well, I guess sort of in the Romulan commander's defense, he does seem kind of skeptical of even wanting the war in the first place. So maybe he's sort of using that as an excuse to, it's like, okay, let's get ourselves killed because I'm already going to be kind of disgraced for getting the ship beat up as is, but maybe I can have a glorious death at the very least, and that maybe will help prevent a war?
And I think that's actually some good motivation on the Romulan side.
Yes.
But it still takes agency completely out of the hands of Kirk. So far, every single episode has taken agency completely out of the hands of the person who is supposedly our main character.
Well, I guess to a certain degree, sometimes he just kind of gives it up anyway.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's not even necessarily that bad. It's pretty bad storytelling. It makes the plots not make a lot of sense, and they just feel kind of random.
Yeah.
It's that thing of, things are happening to these characters. These characters aren't really exhibiting any kind of agency into the world around them.
I guess there was that one time they blew up Mud's ship.
Yeah, but it's just kind of implied that was an accident.
Well, they still decided to follow Starfleet regulations and chase them. Maybe you're right. What else? Why would there be? Well, I guess there's the time Spock, stole the Enterprise, the menagerie. That was kind of workable, right?
Yeah, except they were being manipulated the entire time by the Telosians.
Oh, dang it. I'll have to think about this. Maybe we'll get some better examples later.
Yeah, even the one thing that popped to my mind was the Where No Man Has Gone Before episode. He takes out the God guy. Mm-hmm. But even in that one, he has to, his little partner there has to betray him first.
Yes. So, basically, someone who's already kind of turned to the dark side, it basically has to have a change of heart enough to help us out.
Yeah, the only thing you can say for that is, maybe Kirk's speech convinced her to turn. But, that's still pretty light on the exhibiting agency bit here.
Kirk uses speech. It's super effective, I guess.
I mean, I really see where the Zap Brannigan character comes from in Futurama. because he's just like a bumbling idiot with this huge ego that things just keep working out for no reason.
Yep. Strong jaw spaceman who stumbles through and gets all the credit and is the hero to everybody.
Yeah, which, like, fine, that is what was being written around this time period. You had a lot of books with that being the general premise in science fiction. I enjoy those kinds of stories myself from that era.
Yeah.
But those characters did stuff.
They had self-motivations. They had things they actually wanted to do. Like, all right, well, I might have, like, the mission I'm supposed to be doing, but there's more to it than that. I got personal reasons to be here. I'm going to maybe screw it up and have a dramatic character flaw, even though it's not, like, a big one, because, I'm still Spaceman Hardjaw.
It's a weird one, because it actually winds up being slightly less colonialist and racist than the other science fiction stories of the time period. Just because Kirk is the, like, colonial empire white dude is not exhibiting any authority.
Yep.
Like, the authority still happens randomly, but at least he's not directly subjugating people. They just happen to find themselves subjugated later.
Huh. Well, I guess this is a thing that happened, so maybe we could react to this now and maybe have a weird discussion about philosophy of there's only one Kirk out there, man. Isn't that cool?
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. You can only, having one guy standing by while stuff just kind of happens is enough, don't you think?
Yeah.
But we need that guy for reasons. Because it means that there's less evil being perpetuated. Because he would not be replaced by someone who's more of an asshole.
I feel if we've strayed this far from the original plot, it's probably, like, good to get on to awards and such.
All right, so the awards are pretty straightforward and kind of covered a lot of the nitty-gritty of them. Space as ocean, yes, because we got spaceships who are engaging in very naval of the sea variety tactics.
Yeah, much more oceany than normal.
And we got sound and space logic because we're all whispering during silent running. Jeepers.
I wish they'd stop doing that.
Can't let the Romulans hear our gossip. Everyone quiet down. And my third one for today is 2 days of retirement for the guy and the happy couple that was getting married at the start because they are about to have a glorious, bright future together, and oh no, one of them's dead.
Yeah, just immediately.
Yes.
Hey, I didn't even notice that guy was in the phaser room until my second watch through.
Yeah.
Like, I got to the end and they were like, oh, the dude died. I'm like, what? They killed married dude off screen?
It's like, that's the guy. Okay.
They draw so little attention to it that I completely missed it the first time until McCoy's like, oh, we had one guy die. When did this happen?
Sort of in that one scene where we're more caring about Styles, the jerk-faced racist, and Spock, who is just kind of there.
Yeah, and then Spock just let the dude die. I want to say, like, Spock definitely just let that guy die. Spock could have carried both of them out of that room.
Yes. You've already sort of established he's kind of super awesome in various ways. So why don't you use your super awesome man to go do something, or are you as useless as Reed Richards here?
Ugh.
By the way, I love that, naming that trope. Anyway.
You're right. I think it is one of the better episodes we've seen. I'm very disappointed by the lost potential.
Yes. I want the Romulan commander to have magically survived somehow, and he comes back to haunt Kirk and Spock in some fashion.
Yeah, maybe like as Spock's like father or something.
Oh no, there has been infiltration. The Romulans are slowly replacing important Vulcans of various sorts, and nobody's noticing.
It's pre-incarnation.
Yep.
All right, what do we got next week? It's Shore Leave, I believe.
Oh, that sounds like a nice and easy adventure here.
The description thingy mentions knights and samurais.
Yep. I actually watched it the other day.
Yeah, so did I. I'm pretending not to know what happens for the purposes of a continuity.
Shh, we could edit that part out.
I just finished writing the synopsis for it last night, so yeah. It's... Oh my god.
Yep.
Like, we'll get to it, but oh my god, what?
But no spoilers for that one.
Yeah. If you want to know what in the world we just saw in that episode, you can join us next week, where Watchers of Tomorrow will be taking a look at Star Trek Original Series episode Shore Leave.
Hooray! Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, McCoy desperately needs someone else to say the lines, "He's dead, Jim." You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Maury's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.